During our last visit in Mark's Gospel, we saw that John the Baptizer used the analogy of baptism. And later Christian scripture would explain that this immersion in water is a metaphor for God washing us clean, as it were. That is, Jesus cleanses or purifies us from the legal guilt of our sin. And in this way, both our legal and relational status with God is restored. And today, Mark shows us two scenes to reinforce why this mission is at the center of a correct understanding of the Christian story. First, we have Jesus' baptism. John told his audience to prepare the way for the Lord in their hearts and lives. And here, the Son of God dedicates himself to God as our representative. He perfectly fulfills and models this devotion to God, even to the point of submitting himself to baptism as a pledge of love and loyalty to God the Father. Then, as Jesus comes out of the water at his baptism, we have a divine and public proclamation that acts as a sort of credential for Jesus as he embarks on his mission that the rest of the Gospels explain. The Father splits the heavens open, the Spirit visibly descends from on high onto the Son, to whom the Father now speaks. The Father says two things that are important for our purposes. He says, "You are my Son, whom I love." This is a familial analogy to express the closest possible kind of relationship, father and son. And in light of what eventually happens to Jesus, the Christian story is therefore a very personal rescue mission. The second thing that we see the Father say is, "With you I am well pleased." This is a very public seal of approval, delight, and joy in Jesus' mission that has now begun. The second scene Mark shows us is Jesus' temptation in the wilderness. We see that the Spirit immediately drives Jesus out into the wilderness. This is a scene of desolation that's perfectly made for some sort of epic confrontation. This is a setting that echoes throughout Scripture as the backdrop for other dramatic encounters. None of them are as dramatic as this one, though. Why is Jesus driven into the wilderness? To be tempted or tested by Satan. Jesus' job is to engage Satan for us, on our behalf, as our representative, as our substitute, our vicarious stand-in. Along this line, the Apostle Paul later compares Jesus to a sort of Adam 2.0 as the new and better representative for all of humanity. Just as the first Adam's failure brings death to all, the second Adam's victory brings life and light to all who desire it. And the temptations that Satan levels against Jesus in the wilderness here are sort of a substitutionary do-over of that first confrontation from Genesis 3. The first Adam failed to resist Satan. Will the second Adam succeed where the first failed? Matthew and Luke's account suggest that Satan individually tailors his temptations and traps to target our weakest points. This is what Satan did to Jesus. And it's also what Satan does to each one of us. He fashions a customized battle plan tailored to achieve maximum negative impact in our individual lives. Satan has a different plan of attack on each one of us, and none of us can win. And yet, this is the battle which Jesus engages here on our behalf. Can Jesus defeat Satan for us as our champion and stand-in, and therefore break Satan's legal claim on our souls? Can Jesus defeat Satan and set the captives free? Unlike the other gospel writers, Matthew and Luke, Mark doesn't focus on the victory at all, but just on the conflict with Satan that takes place in this wilderness. Jesus is the king who's come to battle Satan on our behalf in order to secure our rescue. What are we going to do with this information? Scan one or all of the three codes on your screen to learn more. And be sure to watch the other videos in this series as we continue to explain the Christian story through the gospel.